Amorous, answer me. Why is there an old couple I don't know living in the big, expensive lake house I bought for you? The entire Thanksgiving table went completely quiet. It was the kind of silence that makes your ears ring, and even the ticking of the wall clock sounded too loud. Clink! A sharp, empty sound echoed across the room. My dad, Dorian, dropped the knife he had been holding onto his plate. It rattled loudly. I stopped my hand halfway to my mouth, pumpkin pie balanced on my fork, and slowly looked up. My grandmother, Eudora, was staring at us all. Her eyes were piercing, sharp, and very serious. She looked straight at me first, then moved her gaze to my sister Nissa, and finally to my parents. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where are you watching this from, and what time of day is it? Grandma had just returned from living overseas for several years. She seemed stricter than ever, and there was a certain aura around her that made everyone feel like they had to be careful, like stepping on thin ice. Grandma, what did you just say? I asked. My voice trembled. The words sounded like something from a dream, or maybe a scary movie. I couldn't understand what she meant. I didn't even have enough money to buy lunch most days. Didn't you hear me, Amorous? Grandma said, her voice calm but with a hidden heat under the surface. I'm talking about the lake house I bought for you 3 years ago. Her words hit me like a cold wind. My heart started to pound, and I felt my stomach twist. Grandma, maybe there's some kind of mistake, I said, trying to find courage inside myself. I was shaking, but I had to speak. The truth was, I didn't own any house. Not a vacation home, not even an apartment. I had nowhere permanent to live. I had been kicked out of my apartment last month, and had been crashing at friends' homes ever since. I had been working 3 part-time jobs just to make sure I could eat, and pay for small things like bus fare. My grandmother's eyebrow twitched slightly, and I could tell she was watching me closely. I went to check on the house as a surprise when I came back, she explained. You weren't there. Instead, an old couple I had never met answered the door. They said they were Nissa's husband Lucian's parents. Nissa, would you like to explain this? Nissa's hand shook as she gripped her wine glass. She looked down, then up, then all around the table. Grandma, she almost screamed. That must be some kind of mistake. Maybe you went to the wrong house. There are lots of houses that look similar. You must be tired from traveling. Yes, Mom, my mother Althea quickly added. You're probably just confused from your flight. Come on, let's not worry about it. The turkey is getting cold. Be quiet, Grandma shouted. Her voice was so powerful it felt like a hammer hitting the table. Everyone flinched and sat frozen in their seats. My mind is not failing me, she said slowly. She reached into her handbag and pulled out a photograph, sliding it across the table toward me. This is what Lucian's parents said to me, she continued. We're staying in this home owned by our son's wife, Nissa. Nissa's face went pale. Her eyes widened, and her hand trembled even more. I looked at the photograph. There it was, the beautiful lake house, shining in the sunlight. In front of it were Nissa, Lucian, and Lucian's parents, all smiling. I recognized the place instantly. That was my house. The very same house my grandmother had bought for me 3 years ago. I remembered the post on social media. Nissa had shared pictures of the house with the caption #MyNoVacationHome while I was working my 3 part-time jobs, barely getting enough sleep, and trying to scrape together rent money. I couldn't believe it. How could this happen? I stood up, my chair scraping loudly against the floor. Mom, Dad, what does this mean? I asked, my voice trembling. Grandma bought me a house, and I'm living like I have nothing. My father shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Mom, it's complicated, he said. This is Thanksgiving. Talking about money now, maybe it's not the right time. We can talk tomorrow in my study. No, my grandmother said sharply, cutting him off. We are talking about it now. Amorous, you really don't know anything about the $1 million lake house I bought you 3 years ago, or what happened to it. $1 million. My mind spun. That number was more than I could imagine. I had $12.50 in my bank account this morning. I had worked 3 jobs, barely slept, and watched all my money go to bills and loans. And now I was hearing about a house worth more than $1 million? I don't know anything, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I've never seen a vacation home. Nobody ever told me. Grandma's gaze softened just a tiny bit. I thought for a second that she might forgive my parents. But then her eyes hardened again, and she looked at my parents. Dorian, Althea, you told me, didn't you? She said. Amorous is not ready to handle large amounts of money. Until she becomes independent, we have been acting as her guardians and managing that house for her. What? I shouted. Wait a second. When was I ever mentally unstable? I graduated at the top of my class. I've worked hard my whole life. I've never caused trouble. I am not incapable. Amaris, calm down, my mother said in a low, warning voice. There was no kindness in her eyes, only a cold warning telling me to be quiet. Don't you dare! I yelled, jumping to my feet. My chair toppled over behind me with a loud crash. I was shaking with anger. I am perfectly normal. You are the ones who are wrong. When I couldn't pay my rent, you told me I wasn't trying hard enough. And behind my back, you gave my house to Nissa. Amaris, how dare you speak to your parents like that? My father shouted, hitting the table with his fist. We did it for your own good. You couldn't manage the house, so we entrusted it to Nissa. For my own good? I shouted. I felt numb, shocked, and furious all at the same time. Oh, shut up already. Nissa screamed. You don't deserve a house like that. We were just putting it to good use. You should be thanking us. I was shaking all over. My hands, my legs, my chest. It all felt like it was trembling with anger and frustration. How could the people who were supposed to be my family do this to me? That's enough. My grandmother's voice cut through the chaos like a sharp knife. She slowly rose from her chair and walked over to me. She placed her hand gently on my shaking shoulder. Her touch was warm, steady, and comforting. Amaris is right, she said firmly. All of you are rotten. Completely rotten. My mom, my father said, shocked. We did everything for the family. Grandma looked down at him coldly. There is no family here. There are only hyenas who feed on their granddaughter's property. Tonight, everything will be set right. She pulled out her phone and pressed a speed dial number. A moment later, the front door opened, and a man walked in. He was tall, wearing a dark suit, and carried a thick briefcase. It was Mr. Alastair, my grandmother's lawyer. Mrs. Locksley, I have brought all the documents as instructed, Mr. Alastair said in a very serious voice. He placed the stack of papers carefully on the table. What is all this? My father asked, stepping back. Dorian, Althea, and Nissa, my grandmother said, her voice cold and strong. I will now go through every dishonest thing you have done. 1 page at a time. Don't think you can escape. Not one single lie will go unnoticed. I wiped my tears away and lifted my head. Grandma's hand on my shoulder made me feel strong. I realized it was my turn to stand up, to no longer be the frightened girl who had stayed quiet for so long. The room was completely silent. My small laugh echoed, startling everyone. I stood up slowly, feeling brave and ready. I wiped my tears with my napkin, looked at my family with cold eyes, and said, That's enough acting, Grandma. Yes, Amaris. I have been thoroughly entertained, Grandma said, stepping next to me. My parents and Nissa didn't know what had just happened. They were frozen in shock. Why are you laughing, Amaris? My mom asked, her voice trembling. Don't you see? I said. You were all being played. I explained carefully. A week ago, Grandma contacted me. Not through you, but through my aunt. She said the family had been hiding her letters and keeping me away from what was mine. That's why we planned tonight's dinner. We waited for the moment when you would let your guard down and admit the truth yourself. My father went pale. He tried to stand up. Sit down, my grandmother said. One word pinned him to the chair like magic. This isn't over. It's just beginning. Mr. Alastair, please. Shall we start with the forged gift agreement? Mr. Alastair asked. He slid a document to the center of the table. It was a real estate registry showing that the lake house was legally mine. This house, Lakeside Manor, was first bought by Mrs. Locksley in Amaris Locksley's name. But now, the house is officially in the name of Nissa James, my younger sister. The house was transferred to Nissa 3 years ago on October 15th. And the price? Just $1, a gift. I froze. $1. That was the price of my life. I looked at the date again. October 3 years ago. That was exactly the same time I finished college and started having lots of problems with money, paying back student loans, and just trying to survive day by day. That was the moment my life began to fall apart. I had always thought something strange was going on, I whispered. I had worked very hard in school. I graduated at the top of my class. My teachers liked me and wrote glowing recommendation letters for me. I even made it to the final interviews at several big companies. But somehow, every single one of them said no, and none of them explained why. I fixed my gaze on my father. His eyes darted away, avoiding mine. Around the same time I was being rejected, strange anonymous emails were being sent to the human resources departments of the companies I was about to work for. The emails said things like, Amaris Locksley has a serious mental illness, or Amaris Locksley causes trouble at university. What are you talking about? Dad said, trying to act as if he didn't know anything. I said, IP addresses don't lie, Dad. Those emails were sent from this house. And the times match exactly the hours when you were in your office. You made me lose my job opportunities on purpose, didn't you? You wanted me to stay dependent on you so I wouldn't find out that you were using my name to steal money and commit fraud. No, it was for your own good, Dad said quickly, trying to defend himself. I turned to Mom. And you, Mom? I finally understand why, no matter how hard I worked, I never saved any money. I finally understand why I kept failing credit card screenings and had no financial freedom. Attorney Alastair then pulled out a set of bank statements. These were the bank accounts Amaris used to pay her student loans. Amaris deposited money every month from her part-time jobs, but the money didn't go to the loan company. Instead, it went secretly into a hidden account in Mrs. Loxley's name. My mother gasped, covering her mouth with her trembling hands. And yet, Mom, I said, you always told me I wasn't working hard enough. You kept telling me I should be more like Nissa. Because of you, I was blacklisted, I said, my voice shaking. I couldn't even rent a proper apartment. You destroyed my credit. You forced me to juggle 3 jobs and still live in fear of ending up on the streets. My poverty wasn't bad luck. It wasn't because I didn't try. It was a cage built carefully and deliberately by my own parents. I turned to Nissa. And you, Nissa? She glared back at me, acting like she was the victim. Lucian's parents are living in the vacation house, right? So what if they are? Nissa replied, jutting out her chin. Lucian's mom and dad retired and wanted a quiet place to live, so I let them stay there. What's wrong with that? You let them stay? For free? I asked, raising my eyebrows. Of course. They're family. Don't lie, Nissa said confidently. I nodded slightly to Attorney Alastair. Without a word, he presented the next document. These were deposit records for a bank account in Nissa James's name. Attorney Alastair read calmly. On the 1st of every month, $5,000 is transferred from Lucian James's parents' account. The stated reason is rent. My grandmother spoke first, her voice trembling with anger. Nissa, so you not only stole Amaris's house but then made money off your in-laws as well? No, that's not true. Nissa screamed. That was a maintenance fee. It's a huge house. It costs money to keep it up. Lucian's parents are rich anyway. $5,000 is nothing to them. That's not the point, I said quietly but with force. You took my house without permission and made $5,000 every month from it. Meanwhile, I, the rightful owner, could barely afford food for the next day. You knew that. Nissa's eyes darted away. My father leaned forward, trying to intervene. Yes, maybe the way we did it was a little heavy-handed, but look at the outcome. The house is well-maintained, and Nissa's in-laws are happy. Isn't that far better for the family as a whole than letting Amaris live there alone? We can always give Amaris some money later. A consolation payment? I asked, my voice quiet but full of disbelief. A consolation payment? My grandmother repeated in a low voice. She gripped her wine glass tightly. When my granddaughter was on the brink of sleeping on the streets, you were living in luxury using her property. And now you think a little money can fix it. But Mom, Amaris is still young. Hardship builds character, doesn't it? Nissa said. Shut up, my grandmother roared, her voice echoing through the room. I shook my head in disbelief. I wrote to Amaris every single month. I asked, how's the house? Are you having any trouble? But I never got a single reply. Instead, Dorian kept telling me, Amaris is so mentally unstable, she can't even write a thank you note. Not a single letter ever reached me, my grandmother said coldly, turning her gaze to my parents. Every letter I sent was addressed to this house. You claimed Amaris was mentally unstable and said you would hold on to them for her. And you never gave me her real address. You crushed my letters and cut off all contact from Amaris as well, didn't you? I asked, my voice rising. That's because, my mother shouted, you seemed so busy with work overseas. Everything finally fell into place. The distance and the lies, the money being stolen from me, the letters being destroyed. It was all a carefully built trap. That's enough excuses, I said, taking a deep breath and signaling to Attorney Alastair. Let's confirm the facts from a legal standpoint. Attorney Alastair displayed on his tablet the so-called transfer agreement that Nissa was using to claim ownership of the house. Miss James, he said, you stated earlier that this document represents a legitimate transfer from Amaris 3 years ago. Correct? Yes, just look at the date, Nissa shouted, drenched in sweat. Indeed, it does say that. But we conducted a digital forensic analysis of the paper itself. Attorney Alastair pressed a button, and a magnified image of the document appeared. Beneath the paper fibers, tiny dots that couldn't be seen by the naked eye emerged. This is a machine identification code. Many color laser printers embed microscopic yellow dots that record the printer's serial number and the date and time of printing. What? Nissa's mouth fell open. After analyzing these dots, we determined that this document was printed exactly 6 months ago, he continued. That's strange, I said with a cold smile. Why would a contract supposedly signed 3 years ago be printed on paper that was printed just 6 months ago? Then I spoke slowly and clearly. In other words, this document was faked 6 months ago. I can think of exactly why you suddenly needed to forge it 6 months ago. 6 months ago, Grandma contacted you and said, "My work is finally stabilizing. I may return home soon, won't she?" You panicked. Until then, you'd been illegally living in Amaris's house, pretending it was Nissa's, with no real legal documents. But once Grandma returned, your lies would be exposed. So you hurriedly forged documents to give yourselves a legal cover. That's not. Nissa started to protest. But if you had asked me to sign it, you would have been exposed. So Nissa copied my handwriting and forged the signature with a date from 3 years ago. Isn't that right? I said, looking from my father to my mother and finally to Nissa. My father clutched his head and groaned. I had hit the mark. For 3 years, they had done whatever they pleased, counting on the fact that my grandmother wouldn't come back. But the moment they heard she might, they panicked and rushed to fabricate evidence. That panic was what led to their fatal mistake. Attorney Alastair pressed on mercilessly. According to the handwriting analysis, this signature matches Miss Nissa James's handwriting with a 99% probability. This constitutes clear forgery of a private document with a seal. Furthermore, Miss James falsely claimed to be Amaris's legal guardian and withdrew $1 million from Amaris's account under the pretense of maintenance costs for the vacation home. That constitutes fraud and embezzlement. Nissa's face turned pale. She opened her mouth, but no words came out. I took a deep breath and looked around the room. My grandmother's eyes were filled with tears. My parents' faces were pale with shame. And Nissa finally understood that no trick or lie could cover the truth anymore. Every detail, every piece of evidence, every hidden account, every destroyed letter, it all pointed to the same thing. My parents and sister had tried to trap me, steal my property, and destroy my life. But now, thanks to careful investigation, the truth was finally out. I felt a strange mix of sadness and relief. Sadness for all the years I had suffered, and relief that finally, the truth could be seen. And that was the moment everything began to change. Nissa began shaking so badly that her whole body trembled. "Prison, this can't be real," she whispered, her voice breaking. She turned to my father. "Dad, say something. You're the one who said, as long as we backdate it, it'll be fine." "You idiot. Shut your mouth," my father roared, but it was far too late. Attorney Alastair, who had been watching quietly, spoke in a calm voice. "The police have already been notified, Miss James. Criminal charges will be filed against you immediately." Nissa screamed. No. I didn't do anything wrong. Dad told me to do it. He said Amaris would never notice. He told me just to copy her signature. I only did what I was told." "What? Nissa, you're blaming your own father," he shouted. "But it's the truth," she cried. "Mom said it too. She laughed and said Amaris would never be able to repay her student loans anyway, so we might as well take the money ourselves." "Nissa, don't say another word," my mother yelled, rushing toward her. The scene became painfully ugly. The very people who had been preaching about family bonds and love just moments ago were now throwing accusations at each other. They were all trying desperately to avoid taking the blame. My grandmother watched silently. Her eyes were cold and calm. "That's enough," she said quietly. At those words, the shouting stopped completely. "I have seen enough of your ugliness. Don't stain this table any further," she said. Then she turned to Attorney Alastair. "Mr. Alastair, the revision to my will is complete." "Correct, Mrs. Locksley," he replied, producing a new set of documents. "This is the latest will," he said. "It fully revokes the inheritance rights of Dorian Locksley, Althea Locksley, and Nissa James, as well as Nissa James's spouse. It designates Miss Amaris Locksley as the sole heir to the entire estate." "The entire estate?" my parents shouted in unison. "No. Mom, please wait. Anything but that. We're sorry. We've reflected on our actions. Please." Gone was any trace of pride. My father now looked like a man who was clinging desperately to money. My mother followed quickly, pleading. I'm sorry. I had a moment of weakness. I'll never do it again. Please reconsider. From above them, my grandmother spoke in an icy voice. If you want to apologize, do it to Amaris. She's the victim, not me. Their eyes all turned to me at once, full of pleading, fawning, and that same entitled assumption. Because we're family, she will forgive us. I slowly lifted my wine glass and took a sip. Then I smiled sweetly. No, I said calmly. I do not possess mercy. The only thing I have for you is an invoice. I accepted the final document from Attorney Alastair. This is a demand for restitution for the unjust enrichment you've received over the past 3 years, along with damages for emotional distress. The total amount due is $2 million. If payment is not made by tomorrow, criminal prosecution will proceed immediately. $2 million? My father screamed. There's no way we have that much money. Then sell what you do have, I said coldly. Your house, your cars, your jewelry, and that house where Lucian's parents are living. You will vacate it immediately. No. Nissa collapsed to the floor, kicking Lucian's parents out. If I do that, he'll divorce me, she shouted. That's none of my concern. That's your problem, Nissa, I said firmly. When I lost my job and my credit was destroyed, did any of you worry about me? No. You all mocked me and laughed at me. Now it's your turn to taste that same misery. At that moment, there was a heavy knock at the dining room door. 2 officers wearing sheriff's badges entered. Nissa James, please come with us to the station, one of them said. No. Help me. I didn't do anything wrong. Nissa screamed as she was dragged away. Next, my parents, still in shock, were also placed in handcuffs. Amaris, I'm sorry. I was wrong. Please don't press charges. My mother sobbed through her tears. Goodbye, Mom, I said without looking away. Count the wrinkles on your face in prison. You'll have plenty of time. As the police sirens faded into the distance, only my grandmother, Attorney Alastair, and I remained in the vast dining room. I let out a long breath. It wasn't from exhaustion. It was relief, like a heavy weight had finally been lifted. It's over, Grandma, I said softly. Yes, it is, she said gently, pulling me into an embrace. No, actually, that's not quite right. This is where it begins. Your real life starts now. 1 year has passed since that night. I am standing now on the wooden deck of Lakeside Manor. This place is truly mine. Nissa, her husband, and his parents were forcibly evicted within 72 hours of that night. Her in-laws tried to say they were victims too, but because they had lived there knowing the rent was suspiciously low and the contract was flawed, they were questioned as potential accomplices. Nissa was sentenced to 3 years in prison and is currently incarcerated. She divorced Lucian and was completely bankrupted by damages and legal fees. My parents lost all social credibility and were cut off by relatives across the board. My father's company went bankrupt, and I hear they are now scraping by in a small apartment. I don't even know their contact information, nor do I want to. As for me, I started a new business in this quiet home. I provide online consulting, financial planning, and victim support. When I began sharing my own harrowing experiences, the response was overwhelming. Before I knew it, my schedule was booked months in advance, and my income grew to dozens of times what I had made back when I was juggling 3 jobs. I no longer depend on anyone. I've achieved complete financial independence. On weekends, my grandmother comes to stay here, and we sit by the fireplace, talking and laughing as if we are reclaiming the 3 years that were stolen from us. One day, gazing calmly out over the lake, she said, "You didn't just reclaim the future that was taken from you. Through integrity and courage, you built an even brighter one. This is my home, the place I protect, the place I love," I said. "I'm happy, Grandma," I said from the bottom of my heart. Everything has changed since that night. The people who hurt me most are now facing the consequences of their actions. Nissa is in prison, my parents are struggling, and I have finally found peace and independence. The house is quiet, and I can feel happiness in every corner. I worked hard, stayed honest, and trusted myself. I didn't let anger or sadness rule me. Instead, I turned my pain into strength and built a life I love. Sometimes I think back to that horrible night. I remember Nissa shaking and crying, my parents yelling, and the tension that filled the dining room. It could have destroyed me, but I held on to truth and justice. I am proud of what I have done. I helped the right person, punished the wrong ones, and created a safe, loving home. Now, every morning, I wake up and see the lake shining in the sunlight. I think about how far I've come. This life is mine. Every choice I make, every step I take belongs to me. No one can take it away. I have freedom, happiness, and my grandmother's love. And that is worth more than any money or inheritance. I smile as I pour a cup of tea and sit on the deck. My grandmother sits next to me. We talk about everything, funny memories, serious advice, and the future we want to build together. This peaceful home, this loving relationship, this independence, it's the real treasure. This is my home, I say again quietly to myself. This is where I belong. I will protect it, and I will always love it. I'm proud of you, my grandmother says. And I know she means it. I take another sip of tea and look out at the calm, sparkling lake. Life is no longer about fear, anger, or pain. It's about love, honesty, and freedom. I survived the hardest year of my life, and now I have the life I've always dreamed of. I am safe. I am strong. I am happy. And this is only the beginning.